A world on edge, nations across the globe bracing for possible war. In the U.S., lawmakers gearing up with a record pay raise for soldiers and a stress test for banks over war risks. Plus, a report hinting at a hypothetical clash between the U.S. and China in 2030. Elsewhere, Japan, the U.K. and Italy signing off on a new weapons deal. Surveillance data shared among U.S.-Asia allies. And the Philippines preparing against potential Chinese hostility. What's sparking the global surge in military readiness? What do you think? Let us know below and subscribe if you haven't already. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Can American banks take the cost of suddenly losing the Chinese market if Beijing chose to invade Taiwan? One House panel is asking the Federal Reserve to test out what would happen. In a Tuesday report, the House Select Committee on China said the Fed should be required to perform stress tests on U.S. banks. It also said the agency should get a sense of what impacts a war could have on U.S. financial markets. Andrew Thornbrook, national security correspondent for the Epoch Times, weighs in on the move. More on his remarks in our second half.
A direct conflict or even indirect conflict between China and the United States would be detrimental for the entire globe economically. We've seen report after report that the U.S. economy and Chinese economy would essentially crater, right, in a way that we haven't seen since the Great Depression.
This comes as pressure of a potential Chinese invasion looms over Taiwan. Beijing sees Taiwan as part of its territory. The regime also vowed to take it under control by force if necessary. Though it has never ruled the island, Taiwan is now on high alert. The island also set up a task force to monitor the Israel-Hamas war. Here's one big lesson it learned so far.
Intelligence work is really important, because only by having intelligence can we respond in advance and prevent a war with China.
The rising pressure is putting some lawmakers on edge, even though Taiwan is an ocean away. A conflict involving Taiwan could cost America dearly. A congressman pointed to a war game simulation showing the entire U.S. banking system could be put in danger.
Equity markets would drop precipitously as global shipping lanes close. Shipping insurance premiums would skyrocket, supply chains would break down. And the specter of global conflict would grow, causing further chaos in the global financial system. Americans would likely see their pensions shrink, their bank accounts hemorrhage cash.
Americans had invested over $1 trillion in Chinese stocks and bonds as of 2020. Meanwhile, signs hint that Beijing is preparing for war. The Chinese regime aims to increase its defense spending by over 7% this year, a faster rate than the country's GDP target. Plus, authorities are setting up over 90 offices in Fujian, a Chinese province sitting just across Taiwan. The offices are responsible for mobilizing resources in areas like transportation, economy, technology, data, and communications. They're also designed to arrange civilian measures against would-be enemy air attacks. We'll keep you updated as the situation develops. The Senate greenlit an annual military budget on Wednesday. This year's bill packs the largest pay raise for service members in 2 decades, an over 5% boost. The bill also authorizes $886 billion for national defense programs, about 3% more than last year. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer applauded the bill, saying, quote, "America's military remains state-of-the-art at all times all around the world." The bill comes at a critical time, with conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East, and China flexing its military muscles in the Indo-Pacific. On the China front, the defense bill makes several strategic moves, including a new training program with Taiwan, a plan to speed up deliveries of Harpoon anti-ship missiles to the island, and an agreement to give Australia access to stealthier nuclear-powered submarines. The bill also extends a surveillance program aimed at preventing terrorism and catching spies. War with China in 2030. The latest American defense bill will mandate hundreds of reports about communist China and its military. The most notable among them, an assessment of potential fallouts from a hypothetical war with China in 2030. The bill would direct the Pentagon to analyze all possible outcomes of a war, from economic impacts to cyber attacks and loss of life. Specifically on, quote, the civilian populations of Japan, Taiwan, Australia, and other countries in the Indo-Pacific region. The bill would also require the Defense Department to outline steps for beefing up U.S. defenses. An ambitious project to counter China's military might, 3 U.S. allies working together to build advanced fighter jets. The effort's headquarters now based in the U.K. Here's more.
I don't know if you spotted, but earlier in the year, the Formula One World Championship driver, a Dutchman called Max Verstappen, stormed victory for the 3rd time. And it wasn't just that he drove a fantastic, excellent car, though it was. His car was actually married with a Japanese engine, Italian tyres, and it was manufactured with British expertise. And today, we have collectively put our foot to the sort of proverbial metal again, joining the 3 countries together to produce something even faster than that Formula One car that Max won in. And this major programme with Japan, Italy and the UK working together will create an entirely new fighter stealth jet, a 6th generation jet, supersonic, equipped with state-of-the-art sensors, the standard for future combat air.
Building the world's most advanced fighter jet. That's the subject of an agreement between defense chiefs from the UK, Italy, and Japan. The leaders signed the deal Thursday. All 3 countries are feeling the pressure of growing threats from China, Russia, and North Korea.
3 great nations that, in this world in which we live, feel threatened by state actors that are becoming more aggressive.
Japan is Taiwan's closest neighbor. Rising tensions between China and Taiwan have prompted Japan to rapidly build up its military. The new jets are expected to be combat-ready by 2035.
A threat approached South Korea on Thursday, the same day the 3 countries inked their fighter jet deal. 6 warplanes entered the country's air defense identification zone, 2 of them from China, 4 from Russia. The zone isn't territorial airspace, but entering it is seen as provocative action. One day before, a White House official said the U.S., Japan, and South Korea would share early warning information about North Korean ballistic missiles, noting the exchanges would begin within the next few days. Will Chinese aggression in the South China Sea escalate? Reports suggest the Philippines isn't taking chances. A senior military official on Wednesday said the country is gearing up against potential Chinese hostility. What does that preparation look like? Let's zoom in.
One possible scenario, fighting against Chinese forces attempting to board Philippine vessels. That's part of Philippines' latest drills, preparing for possible action China could take as maritime standoffs intensify. But why the urgency? Tensions arose over the weekend after a collision in the South China Sea.
This is a serious escalation on the part of the agents of the People's Republic of China.
The Philippines reported that Chinese Coast Guard fired water cannons at its civilian supply vessels and even rammed one of the Philippine boats. With aggression on the rise, the Philippines is also strengthening military ties with its defense treaty ally, the United States. But the question is, when might the U.S. intervene?
We consider the U.S.-Philippine Defense Treaty to apply in the cases of armed attacks against the Philippines. Now, here's the catch. Armed attacks. So the State Department is implicitly saying that as long as nobody shoots, well, we don't know that the treaty actually applies.
Retired Marine Colonel Grant Newsham says it's important for Washington to send a clear message to Beijing.
And make it clear to the Chinese that Filipinos are allies, we're going to protect them. If you don't do it with the Philippines, well, you're always going to be able to come up with excuses why it's just too hard not to do anything for Taiwan either.
Beijing claims virtually all of the South China Sea as Chinese territory, covering about 1/3 of global shipping routes. This includes exclusive economic zones belonging to the Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Brunei. An international tribunal declared those claims invalid.
A global campaign targeting citizens at home and abroad. The House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party is drawing attention to Beijing's threat to academic freedom at U.S. institutions. Here's more.
I would like to first introduce Ms. Anna Kwok.
Wednesday's hearing, titled CCP Transnational Repression, the party's effort to silence and coerce critics overseas, invited testimony from 3 witnesses.
Ms. Kwok, one of our witnesses, actually has a bounty on her head because she chose to stand up for freedom. Look at the wanted poster behind me.
Representative Dusty Johnson says the courage of witnesses is giving a sense of how terrible the Chinese regime is.
As we gain a deeper understanding of how comprehensive the evil of the Xi Jinping regime is, it's amazing to me that there are still American CEOs, there are still American political leaders, there are still American thought leaders who think that they need to play nice with the Chinese Communist Party and the PRC. Of course, the Chinese people are not our enemies. They are the primary victims of Xi's reign of terror. But we should not go out of our way to pander or coddle a dictator. And
the congressman says the U.S. needs to send a clear message, either through sanctions or other legal means.
That you cannot be a kingpin of this kind of organized crime and get away with it.
Johnson says the committee hearings give lawmakers opportunities to discuss how to hold the CCP accountable for its crimes. Witness Jinrei Zhang says he's received multiple threats on college campuses and online. He says his family has been interrogated over his dissenting views on the CCP.
And the threats were mostly the same, and the objective of trying to get me to stop talking was the same. The difference is that they showed my father a printout of my private chat records with my mother and my sister.
Zhang says the benefit of telling his story outweighs any possible harm.
I am in America, so I'm less afraid. But I do believe that there will be some consequences to this. But I believe it is also very, very important for me to come forward to say this because it is on the mind of so many people. Every person who has any kind of dissenting opinion against the Chinese Communist Party, they have thought about the possibility of being subject to transnational repression.
Chairman Mike Gallagher told NTD that holding CCP collaborators accountable is a matter of educating law enforcement and demanding action in some cases.
And I think that was really what happened with the illegal police station in New York. It's that initially the FBI didn't take action until there were reports drawing attention to it, and then they were forced to take action. So if we get law enforcement to a place where they're able to track things like this and take action before someone gets harassed or assaulted, that would be an ideal outcome.
A tactic committee member Congresswoman Michelle Steele agreed was critical.
So we really have to educate our law enforcement to protect us and protect all the immigrants.
Gallagher says university leaders and administrators need to be held accountable for protecting their students from the CCP's repression.
They seem to be obsessed with this idea of safe spaces, but when it comes to the actual physical safety of Chinese students or Taiwanese students, too often they turn a blind eye, perhaps because there's a lot of money coming from China to American universities.
The chairman suggests that institutions be stripped of federal funding or tax-exempt status if they break laws around disclosing foreign gifts. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Next, some updates on the economic front. 2 retail giants with Chinese roots are duking it out in U.S. court. Temu filed a new lawsuit in a U.S. District of Columbia court on Wednesday against its rival SHEIN. It's accusing the brand of using mafia-style intimidation to coerce suppliers to drop Temu. Tactics allegedly include detaining vendors in SHEIN's offices for hours, confiscating their electronic devices, and threatening them with penalties for doing business with Temu. Temu is based in China and SHEIN was founded in China. Most of both companies' suppliers are based in China. SHEIN has denied the accusations against it. Next, we turn to TikTok. The Chinese video sharing platform generated $10 billion in global consumer spending. It's the first app that isn't a mobile game to hit the milestone. But the platform comes with controversy. TikTok has come under fire over concerns about its connections to China. That's led governments worldwide to ban the app on official devices. The app is also accused of addicting teen users and causing other mental health harms. TikTok denies those accusations. Over to Europe, Germany is working to cut its dependence on Chinese supply chains. It secured billions of subsidies for microchip plants in the European country. The money will go to Taiwanese chipmaker TSMC and U.S. tech companies Intel and Wolfspeed. Parliamentary State Secretary at the German Ministry of Economics, Michael Kellner, confirmed the news earlier this week. Germany has promised $22 billion to chipmakers. Unused funds from the pandemic were slated to pay for the incentives. Though the move was delayed after the German Constitutional Court ruled the use of that money unconstitutional. And Asia has a new leader for stock market listings this year. More Chinese companies chose the Indian city of Mumbai to launch their IPOs than any other financial center in China. The number of new listings in Mumbai is expected to rise 45% year on year. New listings in Hong Kong and Shanghai are expected to fall by about 20 to 30%. That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for more than 2 years. If you'd like to support us, subscribe to our partner platform, Epic TV, where you can watch our full episodes, or consider donating. Find us at donorbox.org/China-in-focus. Here's what to look out for in our second half. Could a conflict between the U.S. and China spark in 2030? That's what the new U.S. defense bill is hinting at, and it's set to demand hundreds of reports from the Pentagon about China's military. The most eye-catching one, an assessment of a hypothetical war with China in the next decade. What's behind the urgency in defense preparedness? And just how crucial is preparing America's financial system in case of conflict with Beijing? We sat down with Andrew Thornbrook, national security correspondent for the Epoch Times, for details. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. See you tomorrow.